Alright guys, time for some more RC Mojo. I've not had a chance to do anything spectacular this week, but I did fit in some repair work on the roof rack lighting system where that LED died last week. Speaking of cool stuff however, keep an eye out on our Twitter as we'll be getting something quite big with lots of wheels to play with in a few weeks. Okay, the Pajero. If we cycle through the lights, it's all good until we get to the big spots on the roof rack. One of them failed while out trailing. Fiddling about with the wiring and tapping it doesn't make it flicker, so it's safe to say it's terminal. We need access, so the body comes off, the wiring gets pulled out. It's attached with a bit of hot glue on the pillar, so that will need replacing. Now, the 4 nuts holding the roof rack come off. Then the roof rack can come off with all its wiring. With a small Allen key we can take the big spots off, making sure we don't damage the screws. Now, with a small screwdriver the LED clips come off and the LEDs can pop out. I'm going to try and cut the heat shrink and desolder the wires. With a sharp knife, cut down one side of the tubing and peel it off. Unfortunately, with the glue I use to hold the twists in the wire, it can be a bit tricky. No worries though, as there's plenty of wire length to snip the ends, strip the insulation and tin the wires. This is one of the LEDs we're going to use, super bright white, and here of course is the other one. The most important thing when wiring LEDs in series, whether you're using an LED controller like our little TLU-01 or you're using a resistor, is to keep all the LEDs in the chain the same type. Preferably even the same batch from manufacture. The first thing I'm going to do is snip the legs on the LEDs and pop an LED into a pair of pliers so it doesn't roll away. The wiring, which I've already trimmed to length and stripped some of the insulation, needs tinning. Something heavy to keep the wires stable, then heat them up while applying a little bit of solder. Of course, to make things easy you need to tin the LED legs too. One thing to watch out for, with the short legs the heat from the iron will get up into the diode very quickly and possibly do some damage, so keep the iron on the leg for as short a time as possible. Pop some fresh heat shrink over one of the wires, line it up on the LED, get some fresh solder on the iron and apply it to make the joint. Easy enough as far as what goes where. If you follow the Tamiya wiring colour code, which is a bit tricky to see under the black paint, but hang in there. From the connector, the black wire goes to the cathode of the first LED. Then from that LED's anode, the red wire goes to the cathode of the second LED. The white wire goes from its anode back to the connector. Not so difficult, at least when you've got a diagram. Anyway, soldering complete. I've plugged the LEDs into the TLU-01 and put some power on the system, and they work. Never doubted it. To shrink the tubing, a quick blast with a heat gun. If you've painted the wires, watch out as the heat can make it bubble if you get it a bit too hot. To stop the light leaking out the back of the LEDs, I like to paint them. It's not so much the LED itself, as the light will all go out the front. But when you have the LEDs in a bucket, the light bounces around inside and you'll always get a little bit of glow finding its way out the back. It's an easy fix though. A good layer of white or silver paint to reflect the light forward, leave it to dry, then a good layer of black to make sure nothing can leak through. Of course, leave it to completely dry or you'll just scrape it off when you reassemble. So, some time later, we can pop the LEDs back into the spots. They just push in, LED clip over the wires, and all held in with a small screw. They get offered up to the roof rack and the Allen head screws go in, being careful of course not to damage them. Looks good so far. Just need to refit now, so the connectors go through the antenna hole, the roof rack fits into its holes, and from the underside the nuts and washers go on. The wiring gets plugged in and routed through the wire clips. I'll need to put a couple of blobs of hot glue to keep it all running down the pillar nicely. Could do with another one of those clips really. Nearly there, just need to plug the body into the controller on the chassis. I kinda wish I'd made the chassis wiring loom a bit longer. Right, testing. Oh yes, it works. Got the inner and the outer pairs swapped round, but I can just switch them round on the TLU01. So, job jobbed. Sorry it wasn't very long or a very exciting video with some fancy new bit of kit, but as I said at the beginning, we should have something new to build with lots of wheels and loads of space for activities. It will be a couple of weeks though, and might take another week or two to make it up on the channel. There will be pics posted up on Twitter and maybe Google Plus if I can figure out what to do with it. Anyway, thanks for watching. As always, a like is always greatly appreciated. If you want to see what's coming up, you can subscribe here so you don't miss when we post a video. And of course there's Twitter, where we post little bits and bobs. That really does sound scripted, doesn't it? Can't imagine why. Bye guys. Easy as enough.